Okay, so thank you very much. Well, I think first of all, I'd like to really, a heartfelt thanks to the panel that are joining me. So, Natasha, Barvin, Ronnie, and Siju, it's a real pleasure to be on the stage with you. I think what we'd like to talk about today is just kind of how and what premium means. So obviously, I'm actually probably pretty old, and when I started working digital newspapers, premium, the concept was if a piece of editorial was professionally produced, and it was in a relevant vertical, then that qualified as premium. And obviously, that I think as Natasha's company's Meta has kind of redefined, it's that actually that whole definition has been thrown out of the window, and it's much more now. And this is up for debate, but in the eye of the consumer as to what premium is, and ultimately, what is driving effectiveness for the consumer, the advertiser, and importantly, striking that balance. On that note, I think probably I'd love to get your thoughts on, when we think about how advertising used to be just around association with, having an ad next to a piece of editorial, just pure contextual, and now moving into a more immersive and an engaging sphere where users are kind of leaning in. I'd love to get your thoughts on how we're seeing this across your brand. So perhaps starting with you, Natasha, around how you've potentially looked at engagement and interactivity within the ad formats that you're delivering.
Thank you for that. Thank you for having us. I think ad experience has changed over the years. And while native at one point used to be having your ad on a print ad right next to it, like you said, that used to be counted at premium. Now things have changed. Ad experience is really becoming more personalized. And we're talking about personalization at scale, even with AI. It's a huge part of brand building, especially for us, since our product is intangible. And just from there, we actually concern ourselves to thinking, how is this going to add to the user's experience? Like even as ourselves, as consumers. If you watch an ad that's destroying your experience when you're in the middle of watching something that's really important, it just doesn't create like, okay, this is done, let's move on, that 1 minute of Prime or the 1 minute of Hotstar has gone out. It also creates a very negative perception, saying, how many times is this brand showing me that ad? So being that experience and creating that becomes a very important part of not just our thinking, but also of the way we design our assets and design our media. To give you an example, very recently, we partnered with a quick commerce app for a Meta AI campaign, where post the order placing, something like what Anshul was saying, we actually got the attention and got on the order screen. So you've placed your order, you've put that down, you're waiting, you can see the delivery person coming in. We've put our ads there saying, based on your order, what would you like to learn from us? So we've caught you in the moment. We've made sure that your actual experience is not destroyed. And at the same time, we've added some value to you. So I think today, it's all about bringing more value to the consumer than just doing, hey, my ad is here, please watch us and buy us.
Right. Okay. So that's quite far removed from when I first started my career. But I think that touches upon a number of topics, doesn't it, in terms of micro moments, personalization, and just how far the industry has come on. So, Barvin, I'd love to get your thoughts on how, with your brand, you've kind of, I guess, trialed and used interactivity and engagement, and some of the benefits or learnings that you found from that.
Thank you for the question. I think in the world where it is very mobile, video first, I think interactive ads will play a very big role, right? And when you say about premiumness, right, it's actually the premium audience that we want to go after, right? And in the walled garden that we are, right, a premium audience nowadays is very difficult to find, right? Everybody can buy a paid subscription, and then, there are very limited avenues that you can go after, like there is Meta, obviously, there is CTV, right? So, but in such open spaces where there is an opportunity to interact with these premium users, right, you need to have the right messaging in place and the right experience of sorts to ensure that your communication lands well, right? Because at the end of the day, it is not the story that you tell, but it is how you tell the story, right? And if you ask me personally about my past experience, I think when we have done this interactive ads, right, we have seen that more than a discoverability platform, it's more of an engagement driven or a mid-funnel, objective, right, where you move a lot of mind measures which are, with regards to message association or consideration, right, because then you are ensuring that the audience is involved and interacting with your ad. And a lot of VLSs are there to support that particular thing. So I think, yeah, that's the stand that I take.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think certainly, so for us at Digital Turbine, we sort of certainly see that. I think particularly for brands where they're potentially sort of launching new products or going through kind of a growth phase, I think probably the importance of kind of interactivity and engagement seems to be disproportionately higher than for perhaps kind of, reach and frequency. But yeah, but you mentioned that you also have seen sort of increases in sort of, let's say, brand metrics, broadly speaking, when we have got users that are actually interacting with ads versus rather than just seeing them per se.
Yeah, that's right. So I think whenever we have done interactive ads or engage ads in the past, it's more where you bring the story of your ad into an interactive part of it, right? So you would want people to know more about your product, more about your brand, right? And when the person is more involved, it's not just the regular metrics of VTR, CTR, which you involved, right? So the user himself is more involved into the particular ad, and that's where actually the mid funnel and bottom funnel metrics moves a lot for the brand. So I think, yeah, that's the importance of an interactive ad in this particular time and age.
Yeah, interesting. And Ronnie, what are your do you have any thoughts to add from your perspective?
Yeah, see, interactivity, and first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I see a great crowd. I hope post-lunch you guys are all alive and kicking. So interactivity is this, right? We need to really, I've seen this movie called Fatal Attraction, Pyar Tune Kya Kiya, for Indian perspectives, where there is Urmila Matondkar who's like crazy after Fardeen Khan. And like after his life, Fardeen Khan here is a consumer. And we are the Urmila Matondkars. Like, we don't need to be immersive when there is no need for that to happen, right? And I think we've got brilliant examples here. Meta has one immersive, engaging experience called the reminder ads. We've used that sometimes when, and I think it's a beautiful example where, just by simply accessing the calendar of the user, you get a notification during, say, for any product, like say a movie release, taking them directly to, booking tickets. So it's least, the cognitive load for the consumer has to be the least, and the value add for the consumer has to be the maximum. And that's where we hit the sweet spot of interactivity, immersions. So that's my POV on that.
Yeah. I love that phrase, actually, cognitive load, because I think from my perspective, if I'm kind of, there's certain kind of channels, and I'm just, in general, kind of swamped with information per day. So if I can actually kind of just actually have some sort of like defined time with a brand or with any kind of subject matter versus kind of, just scrolling through them, my cognitive load is kind of increased, and I'm paying disproportionate attention to that subject, whatever it might be, whether it's my kids or an ad or just content, rather than just things kind of coming at me. So I love that phrase. I guess one of the things that we're kind of seeing in general across the industry is kind of the growth of in-app as a channel, but also perhaps kind of, I'd say, probably fair to say that there's still some sort of misunderstanding as to what the sort of the greater opportunities within the in-app space or channel, if you like to call it, kind of brings. So obviously we have some really kind of strong players globally. We have some really strong players very much locally that are kind of within that space. And then there are other kind of channels that kind of sort of sit within the in-app space, but there's perhaps kind of a slight misconception as to perhaps where the trends are and where those growth areas and opportunities for brands are. So, I know, CG, from Sensor Tower, you have an awful lot of insights that we rely on very heavily. It'd be interesting to get your perspective on how you're seeing, sorry, my phone keeps on, how you're seeing trends in the Indian market.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you for that question, James. So, at Sensor Tower, app economy is something that, we've been watching very closely. And, India as a market, year over year, in terms of, let's say, download is what we're talking about, has been, breaking its own record. At the same time, engagement is also something that we are looking at is climbing, not just climbing, but it's, growing almost at, double-digit year over year. And, when we talk about India as a market, we are talking about an average Indian using about 7 apps any given day, and is engaged with multiple categories, and the whole anchor that we are looking at is driven majorly by social apps that we talk about. Short drama, in the last year and a half, was led by a lot of international players initially coming in, and then we saw names like Cuckoo FM or Pocket FM pick up in India, and they actually held the pole position. In fact, that's how it's been over the last decade or so, or more than that, where social and entertainment has dominated the whole space. But gaming is another aspect that we look at, right? And gaming in India is a little different from how we look at it globally. And there was a time period where we were talking about tabletop games, and there was a immediate shift to hyper casual to hybrid casuals, and we had real money gaming coming in, and we saw a sudden death for this particular segment. At the same time, if you look at it over the last, let's say, 12 to 16 months time period, categories like education, for example, where education and learning in that sense, they saw their peak during COVID days, and right after COVID we saw this whole segment dropping out and a lot of business getting shut. But if you look at it today, education and learning is at the same level where it was in 2019 and 2020. At the same time, when you look at a category like parenting, this particular segment has seen a 100% spike in terms of the time spent, is what I'm talking about. So, people are, looking more forward to, customized and, personalized learning sort of an apps in these days or this era, for that example. And I think for brands, partnering with apps today is a lot more important than, what it used to be back in time, because Indian app economy is a very vibrant one. And, you're looking at, a lot of apps that can, put you right in front of the audience that you're chasing or the persona that you're chasing. For example, you're looking at, we spoke about affluent audience or, cream of the crowd that, we are chasing today. And, Cred is one of those examples where you see a lot of premium skincare brands partnering with them, or, let's say expensive watches, partnering with them in that sense. We recently saw a very successful campaign that Shadi did with, a quick commerce platform, which is Zepto, and that was a huge success for them. So you're always looking at, the audience that I'm chasing or the persona that I'm looking at. In today's Indian app economy, there are platforms out there which can actually give you exposure to those set of audience. And, as I checked last, there are about 900K apps out there in India which does ad monetization. So there's a lot that you can explore and, go after and, try and get in front of your audience.
That's interesting. So yeah, 900,000 apps that support ad monetization.
That's correct. That's something that I checked last night. So
Yeah. I mean, that's a big number. And I guess if you think about this from an implementation standpoint, is that a challenge? Is it, when you think of it from a brand perspective, if there's sort of 900,000 potential titles and apps to navigate through, even if we neatly put them into verticals such as education or parenting, as CJ kind of rightly pointed out, where there's kind of valid audiences there. But do we see any sort of barriers for kind of entering into this kind of the broader in-app space that perhaps just the vast options of choice out there and how we kind of group those together?
Go for it.
I feel because there are so many choices, right? You get confused in terms of what do you go after, right? And as you rightly said, right, that if there are so many apps which are monetizable, right, which are brand safe, you don't want to reach out to any audience set, right? So again, going back to the previous point, that reaching out to the right audience is very critical. So when you mention parenting apps, right, and if you go onto the Play Store, you would figure out that there are so many apps, right? And the people from different strata of audiences use different types of apps, right? So you would want to reach out to the right audiences with the right content, and that's why you would not want to go ahead with everything. You would have to be very selective in terms of the right platforms and the right formats, rather, because you would consider an impression reach that you have reached out to your audience. But in a sense where everything is trackable, you would want to get the most quality out from your ad. So, yeah.
I think the other thing is we're very spoiled for choice. Just like everything else in India, we are spoiled for choice. I think 900,000 apps really means you have a wide array to choose from. It also then helps you target better. I mean, I know the audience I want to go behind, so do they. And we will then pick those options that we want to go behind and use the in-app accordingly, whether it's interactive, whether it's a natural way of leading the audiences. It comes down to not just getting that impression, but also getting the attention at that impression, and each of these actually have their own purpose for us.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, actually. I think just reaching the right user is obviously important, but actually kind of, like you say, reaching the right user at the right time and actually getting the result, the media metric that it's important, is probably more important than just actually reaching the right user. And I guess to that point, when it comes to, the opportunities within app and just broadly speaking within digital, about kind of, moment marketing and being able to kind of drill down to actually, we've got the right audience, when can we reach them specifically at at that moment, that sort of tipping point that matters. Do we feel that the infrastructure and I guess the planning frameworks are there to support that? So in terms of that actual kind of moment marketing, I think perhaps what you mentioned earlier in terms of your approach, I think it appears to be there.
You've got to make sure you're giving the user the value. They are actually accepting that. I mean, if I'm watching a movie, you can't come and sell me something that has nothing to do with my movie experience, right? It's going to be more negative perception saying, why am I watching an ad for maybe automobiles when I'm not in the market for this? And I think that makes a lot of difference. Are you adding to the value that the user wants from you at this point? Are they creating, like I said, Bhavan actually touched upon this. The engagement is critical. The value you're bringing is critical. Is there a discovery after this? Are they going to be able to search? Does what you're doing at that moment linger for your consumer to take the action you want? Because not all of us have purchase cycles that end in 20 days. I will bring a product to the market next year where my purchase cycle right now across the world is over 45 days. So if I do something today, is that going to linger for those 45 days? Unclear. So that would actually be one of the things we'll take care of for sure when we're building the strategy around this.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, actually, I want to add on to that, right? I feel the whole industry has seen a curve, right? As you rightly said, right? Where we've started with the entire contextual ad, right? The objective over there was there were limited opportunities available, right? So you would want to showcase your ad, in a specific magazine or a specific ad so that it correlates to the industry that you belong to, right? Then we move to this entire revolution, as Anshul said, right? That the audience or the signals that we have, right? And, everybody joined the bandwagon of going audience first, right? And now we are coming back to the entire contextual piece, right? But the entire objective of contextuality has changed now. There are a lot of discoverability platforms available, right? But people want to specifically do moment marketing or build contextuality so that they can correlate to their brand tonality, their brand messaging, or the core USPs that they want to bring, right? And that is where the differentiating factor would be, right? And if you see a lot of, and if you go in IPL, there would be a lot of ads which would be like, related to their interest rate and, Sixers, right? So that's the correlation, right? Everybody wants to bring out their core USPs through the contextuality, and that is where I think the industry would move towards this particular topic.
Yeah, and I think with the kind of the swathes of data that we have, I think kind of moment marketing and being able to, just from an efficiency standpoint from budget, but also actually driving actual results, I think that's kind of where we should be heading rather than just, a kind of like a reach and frequency perspective. A point that was kind of touched upon just a second ago was kind of just actually driving as one of those kind of metrics was kind of actually getting attention during those moments as well. And I'm just interested because I think attention is one of those areas which is it's still probably not very well defined, I think, globally, which is kind of so it's kind of like it feels like it's launched and perhaps died a death before its course. But just interested in terms of when we look at kind of interactivity and engagement, whether that and attention is also part of the same. I guess the same sort of paradigm when it comes to the actual measurement and effectiveness of ads.
Yeah, so see, attention, at least for brands, attention has to lead to something. We are not in the industry of giving attention for nothing, so we need business with my attention. And it's easier to measure attention. So attention leading to business is what I'm talking about. So when that happens, for lower funnel campaigns, it's easier. My attention is driving clicks. My clicks are driving add to carts, and my add to carts are driving me business. So that's great. But how do we define my attention, which is saliency, leading to sales in the top funnel environment? Like there are agencies in the market that with statistical sample set enough, they give me that measure of awareness and that give me the measure of saliency. But at least for my category, it's like there's an intangible product and we have a tangible product. It needs to sell. So even your saliency at some point in time has to lead to efficiency on ground in sales. So there have to be, isolation match market tests where whether some inventory is performing for me, and sales is the ultimate metric. We are not in the business of only storytelling. Our storytelling has a purpose. So attention has to lead to business, and in each of the phase in the marketing funnel, we should have enough purchase intent leading to sales metrics that proves it, because otherwise it's just great saliency but no business. So that doesn't work for any brand for that matter. So that's what I feel.
Yeah.
I think the bigger difference between an impression and attention is the impact, not the presence. So it's not just, I saw the ad, the impression was served, but did it generate anything for me, is what he's saying, and exactly what I agree with. If it doesn't, what's the environment you put your ad out in? Was there a follow through? What was the format you used? All of these count as your brand experience and towards your brand building. If I'm not doing that, then I'm doing a disservice to my brand, because it's not leading to any outcomes. And we're literally not doing charity sitting there, right? There is a reason why all of us are out there advertising. We need to get those outcomes, and that's only possible through attention.
Yeah. I think it brings it down to a question I'm asked quite a lot is the so what? And it's kind of like, yes, so we bring attention, so what? And I think, yeah, to your point, I think whether it be kind of ad engagement, I think you spoke about, Bhavin, how that kind of has led to kind of positive results from a sort of like a brand lift perspective, but actually how do we link back kind of things like engagement, consumer opt-in to ads, to actually kind of driving sales and driving ROAS, as opposed to, I guess more sort of like vanity metrics that aren't linked to sales, particularly in this day and age when actually kind of the efficiency of buys has become ever important. I think we're already out of time actually. But perhaps just to probably, I guess to tie up, I think kind of the old school definition of premium is most definitely kind of antiquated and out of the window. And it would appear that the newer version is much down to consumer choice, consumer ad experience, but ultimately answering that so what question is, what does it actually deliver to my brand and to my sales?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay, thanks so much.